on race boards is a good skill to learn because not only in a race, like a course race where you're coming into the surf, definitely is an advantage to catch a wave and get in front of a competitor. But in riding bumps, it's kind of good practice so you can learn how to ride bumps going downwind. So it's pretty similar to riding bumps when you're normally, when you get ready to get on the bumps, you take a few short, quick strokes. The same thing on a race board. Just when a wave is approaching, we're going to go out to the breaking waves there. And when a wave is approaching, just like regular surfing, you just get ready and you take a few short, quick strokes. The key with the race board, I think, is if you have a ruddered board, any race board, it's kind of hard to, especially if you have a piercing nose, it's kind of hard to keep it from blowing out of the wave. So if the wave is not really breaking and it's kind of more swelling, then you want to ride it perpendicular straight in. But if it starts to curl, then when it gets critical, then you're going to have to surf it like a regular surfing wave. So then you're going to have to make some kind of turn and then go into a tree. But so yeah, when you start off trying to catch the wave, I guess lining up is important so that you're pointing straight in. So some of the tips you can do are, if you line up straight in when the wave is approaching, what's going to happen is if you're paddling on one side, your board's going to start to veer, so you get off of perpendicular. So you want to start out a little off of perpendicular. So let's say you're paddling on your left side and the wave is going that way. So you start out with your board pointing this way a little bit. So by the time you're actually catching the wave, it's pointing exactly straight in, and you can take the drop and go straight down. So some other things, when you're catching the wave, usually there's wind rushing up the face, and like over here today there's offshore wind, so sometimes it's a little hard to get in because on a race board you got a lot more nose than on a surfboard. So you might have to walk up further to maybe the front of the pad to get the weight on the front to then be able to paddle and get down into the wave. And then once you get in the wave, then of course it's important you got to start walking back. Getting trimmed so the nose doesn't dig in. So you just the wave. So let's say you're up here, up on the front, and you start to catch the wave, and you're on it. Okay, then you're going to have to start to step back. So you can either hop back, or you can take a couple steps back like that. But you're going to have to get the weight further back so the nose doesn't dive in.
Yeah. So I find getting back is really important because the board's so long, and if there's that much rail in it, there's no chance of turning it. No matter how you lean on the rail, if that much more than half your rail's in the water, you're not going to be able to turn it at all. So getting back was really important for me to even begin to learn how to turn. Prior to that, I was just a perpendicular surfer. That was it.
Yeah, the other thing you can do is if your board's veering off center, you can take a kind of a J stroke like this so that you can get the nose back into the center. Or the other thing is I've even done this where you can cross it over like doing that kind of turn. Just pull the nose back over. And then once you're on the wave and then your hands are free, you don't have to paddle, you're already planing. What you can do to balance is you can put your paddle down like this to brace, and that's another third point of balance here so that you can, deal with all that, whatever's going on in the wave. It's like an outrigger that you can use. But if you have an open, like a ruddered board, there are a couple of advantages. You can use the rudder to keep yourself pointed straight ahead, so you're perpendicular wave. But the other thing is it's such a long board that when you actually catch the wave, it's really important to move way back. So like on a ruddered board, I sometimes, even though the steering is way back here, I'll actually walk back and I'll actually be stepping almost this close to the tail on top of the steering on a ruddered board, just to make sure the nose stays out of the water. So it's really important, and it depends how steep the wave is too. If it's really a critical wave, you're going to have to walk back really fast. If it's more of a sloping wave, you may not need to walk back as fast or as far. So it kind of depends. A lot of it is just experience and judgment in terms of riding the waves, and most of all it's just practice. So that's the best thing, is just get out there.
That's what we're going to do today, right? Yeah.
The initial feeling when you get the wave, it'll feel like the board is coming out from under your feet.
Well, hopefully not. I mean, I know what you're talking about, Richard. We talked about this before, but if you feel like the board is going to shoot out from under you, then the best thing to do is, you're probably off balance this way and your center of gravity is too far back. So what you want to do, another thing, Richard, is you got to make sure that as soon as you catch the wave, you start to take at least that one step back, because that's going to put your weight back so that you don't fall back. And then also, being in this stance is good because you have more leverage fore and aft like this, so you can balance the board fore and aft. Whereas if you're in this position, it's really hard to apply leverage fore and aft to the board. So yeah, as soon as you catch the wave, you want to take some kind of step back and get into like a surf stance like this.
I'm just trying to remember to use my paddle more for balance and to help prevent me from falling or doing that.
Yeah.
You're
Kinda
actually
mentioned
using. Oh, go ahead.
No, you kind of mentioned that too, like your outrigger, a third
Bracing,
balance
yeah.
point.
Yeah, actually, you can also use the paddle to help with the fore and aft balance. Because if you're doing a downwind run and you feel like your board's gonna poke or purl, then if you put the paddle on and you actually press it down into the water and push some force in it this way, it'll actually keep the nose up out of the water. So that's another way you can balance the fore aft of the board. On a breaking wave too, I guess if you're gonna purl, if you lean back and you press down on it like that, it'll keep the nose out of the water.
Say about bracing, like when I tell people use your paddle to brace, sometimes they do like this, so which is not very effective because your paddle's like right next to you. So I tell people get your paddle as low to the water as you can, way out to the side, and like a low paddle angle. And then so bend your knees, get low, and then lean on your paddle a little bit, and just skimming the paddle. So you want to keep the blade angled up a little bit so it skims over the surface. Because if you hold it like this, it'll just go down into the water. If you hold it too much like this, you're just breaking. So what you want to do is just skim it over the surface of the water. Get it as low as you can out to the side, and then you can really use it to kind of lean on it, help you balance. And then if you kind of want to go left, it's good to have the paddle on the left side. If you want to go the other way, you can switch the paddle to the other side and do the same thing on the other side. Get way out to the side, and it'll also help you steer better. Surfing race boards is pretty dangerous, obviously, because you got a big board and in the surf, and there's a sharp fin on the bottom. So you want to make sure that you're safe. Good to go with someone else, go with friends always. Make sure you know where the shallow areas are, where the place breaks, and just get yourself familiar and go to a place, especially with the race board where the wave is slopey. You don't want a wave that breaks top to bottom, just barreling or whatever. You want like a slopey wave that kind of pushes you along, doesn't maybe crumbles a little bit. Those are the kind of ways you want to surf on a race board if you're practicing. Always wear a leash, and the stronger the leash is, the better, because obviously it can pull pretty hard. A big board that gets caught by the white water is going to pull hard. Also, I wouldn't put the leash in the middle of the board. I sometimes see people do that in races, so it has less drag. But what happens, this happened to me, I know from experience, but I had the plug in the middle of the board with my leash on it. The wave got caught, or the wave caught the board, and it can it's like the wave kind of T-bones your board. So instead of turning with the wave, the board gets turned sideways to the wave, and it can actually fold your board in half, just that pull from the leash. So putting the leash in the middle is not a good idea. Tail or nose if you have to put it, you can't put it on the tail, because then it turns with the wave. Other things for safety, if you fall in, when you come out, make sure your board isn't coming back at you. So I'm going to talk real quick about going out through the surf on a race board. Obviously, if there's a channel, go around the breaking waves and go through the channel if you can. But if you do have to go through some breaking white water, the trick is to kind of move your way back to pop up on the white water, and then move forward again as soon as you're on top of the wave. So get your weight back to pop it up, and then as you get over, get your weight forward again. And sometimes if the wave is not breaking and you're going your board straight up and it comes back down like this, you want to kind of try to soften that blow so your board doesn't. We've seen boards get buckled just from hitting the water after coming over a wave. So you got to be careful. Like what I do is when I get to the top of the wave, I kind of bend my knees to kind of soften that drop on the backside of the wave.